Hi guys. In this video, I would like to show you how you can build a hotel search assistant in Voiceflow. And this is one of the features that I have built into an AI travel assistant, also built in Voiceflow, and that you could offer to clients from the travel industry, especially travel agencies, for instance. And how this works is that there will be an assistant that asks the user for his desired destination. We will double check if the location that we have found is the one that the user meant. And then the user will be asked to provide his desired hotel stars, hotel ratings. And we will show what matches his query in a beautiful Voiceflow carousel. And it's going to get quite technical in some parts, but I will try to keep it as simple as possible. And besides Voiceflow itself, we're going to use two APIs for this. The one is from Amadeus, and this is a rather big company in the travel industry, and they provide an awesome API with lots of documentation and lots of data that you can use. And the other one will be Google APIs. We're going to use Google Maps embedding, and then also Google Place Details, the Google Places API. And feel free to rebuild this, and hope you enjoy. Now let's take a look at how the end product would look like. So we are being asked by the assistant that would be placed on the agency's website, for instance, where we would want to go. And we will just choose, I don't know, let's say New York. And then it will double check whether this is what we're looking for. And as you can see, it provides us with more information than we have actually entered, just to make sure that this is the one we're looking for. This is a dynamic Google map, and we will confirm this. And it will ask us what our accommodation preferences are, so what kind of hotels we're looking for. Let's just choose 4 stars. And it will then retrieve a list of suitable hotels, up to 5. And this is what we're building. And this is the flow we're going to build. So it's pretty straightforward. Of course, it's from a rather macro level, but the first step would be to set the destination by asking the user where he wants to go. After that, the second question would be to ask him what kind of hotel he's looking for, i.e. hotel stars. After that, we are going to use the Amadeus API to get a list of hotels that match that query. After that, we're going to use that information to trigger the Google API to get according images and descriptions from that specific hotels. And then we're going to output the results of 5 hotels to display them in a carousel. All right, now let's get started. You can see the blank canvas here in Voiceflow. I've created a new project, deleted all the templates that are built right in from the get-go, and we're going to start from scratch. So the first step would be to set the destination, right? So we're going to start with the actual question to the user, and let's just ask him what city and country are you going? And I'm not going to use AI for this because I think it's unnecessary, a waste of token, and create a bunch of variations for these. This is fine, this is fine, and this is fine as well. So you have a little we have a little variation, and we're going to capture what the user answers to this into a variable, and we're going to take the whole user reply and save it into a new variable called, let's just say, create a new variable, user input location. Hit create. And we have the response of the user saved into that. Now, the next step would actually be more interesting. And this is that we are going to use already an API for this, a Google API. So we will go to Dev, select the API step, select the API block. And now we are going to need some information to actually trigger this, because the reason why we're doing this is that we confirm that what the user entered is the place that he really wants to go, so that us as the system or the backend system knows that the location and the surrounding area we are going to look for the hotels is actually the one that the user was asking for, right? So especially if there are ambiguous results, then we need to make sure of that. So we're going to use the Google API for this, and I'm going to show you how this works. All right, now as you can see, I have just switched to Google and to the Places API. And you'll find this at developers.google.com and then /maps. And the documentations part is the one that we are interested in. And as you can see, there are a lot of APIs and a lot of products that you can use for your apps. And we're going to be using the Places API. So head over there. And here you will get an extensive overview, actually, what this thing does. And we will need to set up first our project, and then we're going to the Places API new and going to use the text search. So this will enable us to use this functionality. So first of all, we're going to set up a Google Cloud project. You will need to be logged in. You will have to have a Google account and need to be logged in. And if you do, you just go to set up your Google Cloud project. And these are not all necessary steps. We're just going to go through 3 of them, actually. So we're going to create a project. We're not going to enable the billing process. And then we need to enable the APIs. And the first step would be to create a project. So you hit create new project. And that's actually pretty self-explanatory. So you get hotel search assistant. It's going to be the name of my project. Already created this a bunch of times. Organization does not need to be set. Just hit create. And that's already it. And it does everything automatically. You have a bunch of products that you could use. And we're all set with this part already. Now the next thing would be, so we have created the new project. You can of course read through this, but it's rather simple. And then we could enable billing. Now billing is definitely necessary and interesting if you are deploying this to production, right? So if you wanted to use that system live, then you will need to have billing enabled. And you do get a monthly quota, however, and if you do not exceed this, then the use of this will be free of charge. Now, what we do need to do is to enable the APIs, and all of this is rather simple as well. So you have this big button here, enable the Places API or the Places new API. There's a difference actually. I just click this, and then you're being redirected to exactly the product you need. And there you have the enable button. Click it, wait a couple of seconds, and then we should be good to go. Now it's going to load all of the available products as well. And this is already the next step, the final step. We already have our API key. And this is actually the most important part for us right now, at least for this project. So copy this to your clipboard. And as you can see, we're just going to go back to the overview, and you can see use API keys. So this is where you would head to if this key was not yet already created. And So you would click this button, go to credentials page, and then it would do just exactly the same thing. So you can already go with this, but because we already have the API key here. So we will head back to Voiceflow, go to the content tab. So just hit 2 and we're going to switch to the content tab. There we have the variables, and we're going to create a new variable and call it Gmaps API key and give it the default value of that API key we just created. Create it and save it, and that's it. And now we already have our API key that we need to call the Places API. All right, now that we do have the API key, we are going to continue with the text search. And we're going to go back to the documentation and head to the text search new. And here you see all the information, how the text search actually works. So if you're interested in detail about that, read through it. And what we are interested most in right now is the request parameters we're going to need, right? So we're going to use and need this URL at first to make that request, and head back to Voiceflow and get into our API step, change the request type to post. This is what it says, and enter the URL we just copied. And after that, if you take a look at this, if you're familiar with APIs in general, this should be fairly simple for you to understand. If not, it still is simple, because at the end of the day, it's actually nothing else than all the fields we're going to fill in Voiceflow, right? It's just a fancy way of writing things. So this introduces, so if you have the -d, this introduces the payload of that request, so the data we're going to send. And here you can see the text query, and this is the most important part, because this is where we are going to place in our user input location, if we remember, right? What we saved into that variable. And then you can see the -h, and we have 3 of those, 1, 2, and 3. And these are the headers we need. And here you can also see the API key that's necessary that we have just created. So basically, this is nothing else but just a copy and paste. So we're going to start out with the headers. We're going to head back to Voiceflow, add a header parameter key, take this, copy it here, content type, application JSON, head back, add another header, going to need 3 of those, take everything. After this, the our API key, this is where we are going to use it now. So curly braces, then you just start writing, and then you can trigger the API, the variable we just created, remember, right? And this is the second part, and the third part is going to be the Google field mask. Now, what this does is to enable us to filter our request results, right? So if we use an asterisk, so this is just a wildcard, if you will, to retrieve all the data that's available, to get all the data that is available. And this is fine if you are developing things in the development area, but if you are deploying this to a live system, you would definitely want to filter things. And how this works is that you are taking parameters from that request and are only querying the ones that you are interested in, that you would want to work with, right? And here you can see how this works. So this query would just get the display name, the formatted address, this is one we are going to use later, and the price level. And these are just example parameters. You could use any type you want. And we're going to use the wildcard for now. So we're just going to keep it like this, but please remember this if you are deploying this. All right, now the next thing we need would be the body, right? So we have already seen that we can take this payload and this will give us a template of what we must do in Voiceflow. So we're going to add the body. We're going to use raw and then just copy and paste what we have here. We're going to start where the curly braces start, put it in, and then we would have our text query. So what the user actually entered. Then now this of course is a placeholder and we're going to use the input of the variable we have created, right? Remember, this is the user input location. All right, now another thing we can add would be a max search, I believe it's called max search results, so that we only get one result from that query, right? And this also reduces the amount of data. So no, it's max result count. Sorry, max result count. Need to put that into inverted commas as well. And this is already it. This is already what we need to trigger this API. All right, now that we're all set, we can already try this and see if this really works. So we're going to send the request. We're going to input our API key and choose any kind of location. I just typed in Chicago, hit generate, and we get it to 100, which is exactly what we wanted. And we get a pretty extensive response, right? And this is exactly what I was referring to before when we mentioned the wildcard, you know? So you could have filtered this by providing the request in the first place with exactly those parameters you are interested in, so you can reduce the payload. But we're going to stick with this right now. And I've already copied and pasted this, and just to give you a glimpse into what we are actually interested in. And this would be the ID. So we're going to use the ID later of that entry. I want the formatted address. This is what we are going to show the user to confirm whether this is exactly what he was looking for. And most importantly, because we're going to reuse that in several different places again, are the latitude and the longitude, because these are specific coordinates, right? So there are no ambiguous results. These are exact locations of that location, so you can be sure that these are correct. So how do we save them? We're going to get back to Voiceflow, scroll down, and we're going to capture the response of that API call. And now we can enter a key to access exactly that JSON that we just got from that response. And how do we do this? This is pretty easy, because the only thing you would have to do is to type in response and then dot, and then you are inside that JSON and you can follow the structure from within that file. So response dot, and then you can use the places, because it's exactly what it says here. So you can go to places, and then you can see, according to the brackets here, that this is an array, what's inside those places name, and there is one object. So there we need to select the element of that array, and this is the first object. So the first object would be targeted with a 0 if there were more objects within that. So if you had another curly brace after this one. This, for instance, like this, if this looked like this, then this would be the second object within that places array. And we could access this by using a 1. And if there was a third one, you would use 2, and so on. So there's just 1, so we use 0 and access the next level with the dot. And then you can choose actually exactly that parameter you're interested in. So we said we wanted to have the ID. So this is what I'm going to enter here, and that's it already. And now we get the value that's saved here. So this is the string that will be saved into the new variable we are going to create now. So let's call this gmaps response ID or something, or places ID. Create a new variable, create it again, and that's saved. All right, now for the next thing, we're just going to add an entry in the responses and take the same structure, because the next thing we want is the formatted address, right? And you can see that's on the same level as the ID. It's also within that first object because there's only one. And then you have the formatted address, and you're just going to copy and paste this and replace it with the ID and save it into a variable as well. So let's just name it exactly the same, formatted address, create new variable, and save it again. Now the next thing, you guessed it, was the latitude, right? Now the latitude and the longitude are both inside another object called location. Location itself is on the same level as the ID and the formatted address. You can see that over here, right? So copy that, or let's copy this one, replace it with location, and then we're going to go one level deeper even and hit the latitude. So dot latitude, save this one in another variable. So let's just call it latitude. Save it, and exactly the same, and then we're done with the longitude. And check. Create another variable, call it longitude, and create it. And that's it. All right, then it's time to finally test this. So we're just hoping that this is going to be successful, and at the success path, we're going to input a text step and just output all of the response data that we were just creating variables for, right? So we have the formatted address, we have the latitude, we have the longitude, and we have the ID, places ID, right? And that's it. So hit S, go back to the start, hit R, run this, and we're going to see what's happening here. So keep an eye on all of our variables if they are changing their values. So run test, and let's see which city and country are we going. So let's take Madrid for example. API successful, and this looks great. So this is exactly what we wanted. We have the ID, and I suppose this is going to be the correct one. You can double check this later. Madrid, Spain, absolutely. And we have the latitude and the longitude. So this works fantastic and is exactly the result we were looking for. All right, guys, sorry I had to take a break from this because it was getting kind of late, and we'll continue on the next day with this. So We were just testing this, and we will go on with creating a component out of this, because I like to keep things modularized. So we are going to select all of these and hit this button here, create component, and we're going to call this get, or set actually, destination. Then create component, and then we have a nice little block that we can refer to later and keep it modularized, you know. We're also going to rename this so that it's a little more clear. We are going to name it just like the component, or let's say user question set destination. All right, something along these lines. Now the next point is to set the hotel stars, right? To ask the user for the hotel rating he's looking for. So we will ask him again, create a text. What are your accommodation preferences? And create a couple of variants again. Type of accommodation you prefer. These are all right. All right, you can of course choose your own that you prefer. And now we're going to create a couple of variables, or rather listen for what the user is going to answer. And we will say 5 stars, and let's just head back to one of those emoji sites and choose a star. So let's look for a nice star, copied and pasted this, and this can actually be the label of your button. So this is what we will start with, and enter this 5 times. And we're going to add an action. So what happens if the user clicks on this button? Then we will set a variable, and we will call this, let's say, hotel rating. Create new variable. And the value of that hotel rating is just going to be 5. So if the user clicks this button, then the value of that hotel rating variable will be set to 5. And that's already it. And we're going to do this 5 times. And add another button. 4 stars, actions, set variable, hotel rating to 4. Sorry. Delete this again. Next button, 1, 2, 3, action, go to variable, hotel rating, again, set it to 3, and so on and so forth. We're just going to finish this up. 2, actions, set variable to 2, and last but not least, if somebody would actually prefer to stay in a cheaper hotel, for instance, then he can go for the 1 stars. Hit it to 1. All right, now we have our buttons and our question. And depending on what the user says, we're going to continue with this. All right, and this should already be enough. Let's also put this into a component. You can also use the shortcut for this, Shift Command and K, and let's name this user question, or no, we had this set hotel stars, for instance. Create a component out of this, rename this user question, set hotel stars. All right. Now, if you remember our macro view and our plan and our flow, how we're going to do this, then the next step will be to use the Amadeus API to get actually that hotel list, where we are going to use the information the user just entered, so the latitude and the longitude, plus the rating, the hotel rating, to get a fitting and matching hotel list. All right, now I'm at the Amadeus developers website. This is developers.amadeus.com. And you obviously would need an account, so just hit register here above here, enter all your data, confirm your email, and that's it, and you get access to the docs. I obviously already have an account and gonna log in and this is where you'll end up. And if you check the product site, then you have a bunch of APIs all relating to travel, right? And what we are interested in right now are the hotels. Gonna hit hotels, and what we are looking for is a hotel list. And if you hit that, it's going to be a REST API, and you have all the API references here. And what I like about this documentation is that in each of these categories, they give you like a little question this API is going to answer or is able to answer. And if you take a look at this, which hotels are close to the conference center? And this is exactly what we want, right? We would want something like which hotels are close to the center of Madrid, for instance. So go to the API reference. And as you can see, there are several types of APIs you can use to get that information. So you can use a unique ID, a hotel ID. You can go for the city itself, or, and that's what we're going to use, is the geocode. And if you open this up, you will see that there are actually only 2 parameters we need to get what we want. And this is exactly what we extracted already from that location from the Google API. And that's the latitude and the longitude. Now, the other thing we could use from all the parameters that are available here would be the radius, for instance, so that you could look for hotels that are a little far outside from that center you entered. But what we want to use, this is also, by the way, quite interesting, that you can look for the amenities, you know, what kind of features, if you will, that hotel has. If it has a swimming pool, if there's a sauna and everything else. But the only thing we are interested in is the rating, right? So we're going to use this parameter later on. And to use this right now, we will need, or before we do that, let's take a look at the response just to show you guys what this will actually spit out. And here you have a subtype. And we are not going to use this, but this is the thing we are interested in, right? So the name of the hotel, that is the most interesting part for us. And then you could obviously go on with this. You can get the exact address, you get the IATA code. That's interesting if you want to combine this with flights, right? Because these are fixed codes, fixed IDs, according to the IATA. And this is something you can also reuse. But we will keep it and just use the name right now. All right, so how do we use this? We will need to first create an account. No, not an account, we already have that, but we will need to authorize our app, right? So we need to have an API key, an API secret, and we are going to regenerate all the time. We are using that API and token. So it's a little more complex, if you will, than the Google API, but it's pretty straightforward as well. So at the very top of this part, you'll see the authorization guide, and it will give you clear instructions about where we are going to generate all the necessary authorization keys and what we need and how it works. So the first thing would be to have this base URL. So we need this later on. And after that, we are going to take these parameters here, enter them into Voiceflow, just as we did with the Google API before. And you can also see here, we have this familiar, should be now, by now, format, how this works. And what we get out of that is a response. And here you can see that the access token is the one thing we need, and we need to regenerate all the time. And the first thing so now would be to go for the API key and the API secret that we need. So how do we do this? We will go back to this site, head into our own account and go to my self-service workspace. And you can see it's pretty easily set up, and we will only need to create an app. Let's take hotel search. I've already done this before. And all the other information are optional, so we don't need this. Hit create. And that's already it. And here, down here, you have your API key, and hidden behind these asterisks is the API secret. And you can just copy and paste this and make a variable out of this in Voiceflow. We are going to do that as well. And by the way, this is just for the development part, right? So if you wanted to move this to production, then you would go to get production environment, and there you can enter all your billing data, and then you would be able to use this live and deploy it. And if you're unsure about how to handle API costs with your clients, then I have put out another video exactly about this question, and you can check it out on my channel. Now let's head back to Voiceflow, and we're going to create a component that will be able to generate our access token. And we just go back to dev and create an API step. This is going to be a post request, and we'll switch back to our Amadeus API, and we will take a look at this site again. If you remember, this is the URL we need. This is our base URL. Head back to Voiceflow, just copy and paste it in. And then we will need our headers. And if you can see, this is just like the Google API we used before, right? So this initiates the header. Copy this, paste it here. Copy all of this and paste it here. The next thing is going to be the body. We're going to need this. We will choose URL encoded. Enter the key, and if we head back here, we first of all have the grant type. Enter this here, and as a value, client credentials. And you can also see this here. This is basically exactly the same. Then the next parameter is going to be the client ID. You can also just copy it from here. It's still the same. And now this is going to be, and it's mentioned here, the API key for the application, right? Just as the client secret is the API secret of our app. And add another field, enter the key here, and we're going to create a variable. And let's just say Amadeus API key. Create that. And the default value is going to come from our account within here, right? So just copy this, add back, paste it in, create that variable, and then you have it in here. And exactly the same with the secret, API secret, create it, default value, head back to Amadeus, copy this, enter, create it. And that's it for the body part. Okay, and finally, obviously, we would want to capture the response. So we add another response. And the key we need, if you remember, if you go back to this page where we can generate the access token, we have a schema of the response that we're getting, right? And if you remember how you are able to target the response in Voiceflow, it's just you hit response and then dot, and then you're able to, within a JSON object, access all of these parameters inside, right? And the only one we are interested in is that access token. So we're just going to copy this, paste it here, and then we'll save this into another variable. So let's just say Amadeus API token. Create a new variable. There's not going to be a default value for this. We'll just capture that response, and that's it. So we have this. Let's say call this refresh Amadeus token, API token, and also create another component out of this, Amadeus token, create component. And this gives us a lot of flexibility, because in case we need it later again, we can just use this component and regenerate a new token every time, because they expire, right? So this is for the security reasons that we will need to regenerate it all the time. That's not necessary with the API key and the API secret. They're going to stay the same, but the token needs to be regenerated, so we can always drag and drop this refresh component into all the steps we need for future calls. All right, now let's test this. And we're going to go to the component and open the API step. Go down here to the send request, and then we need to manually paste in our API code, our API key, and the secret. And hit generate, and let's see what happens. All right, now we are getting an error. And let's just see what the problem is. No access token parameter needed for this method. This is wrong because we are not sending any access token. Let's just check whether, I know already what this is about. This is a minor thing, but you know, this is from experience and trial and error. Just remove the last slash in that URL. Try it again. And there we go. All right. So we have a 200, and this is the information we wanted. And here you can see our access token. All right. Let's see if this also is going to be saved to our new variable, Amadeus API token. Try it again. Send, or no, we need to start it obviously from here. Successfully triggered. All right, and here we have it. Great. All right, now let's actually use this to call the API we will need, or we will use to get our actual hotel list. So the next step is going to be to use another API step. Just going to drag it out here. And this is going to be a GET request this time. And we will need a couple of parameters again. We will head back to this side first, to this side first, where we got our hotel list. So we're going to copy and paste the base URL and then that endpoint we would like to use. So I don't know where there's no copy and paste functionality, so let's just type this manually, test.api.amadeus.com/v1, and then go for this endpoint. This is the one we would like to use. So /reference data, locations, hotels, and then by geocode. All right, this is going to be our base URL. Now, as for the headers, we will take a look at the authorization page again. And there you'll see the next point. We have dealt with the request. We have dealt with the response, where we with the response where we got our access token, and then we're going to scroll further down to using the token. And here you have an example, and again here we have our header, so we're going to use this key, authorization, and then bearer, the actual word, so the string bearer, hit space, and then as you can see here, this is the place we're actually using the token we have just generated. So we're going to insert the token right here. Now, as for the parameters, we will head back to the docs. And if you remember, we do need this one, so the latitude. Just copy and paste this as well. So enter the key, parameter, and the latitude is the one we got from the variable before, right? Where we're using the Google API to get this according to what the user enters. And this is where the place where we are reusing this again. And the second thing obviously would be the longitude. Copy and paste this. We get this from here, from this variable. And the other thing we wanted to use, which is optional but still, were the ratings, right? So we use the ratings and enter this one as well as a separate parameter. And if you remember where we got this, or where we are getting this, this is based on the hotel stars, right? The user entered before, where we have saved all of the values according to the number of stars into that one variable. And I think we called it something, yeah, hotel rating. And this is exactly what we wanted. So this way, the Amadeus API will filter out all the hotels that are not 4 stars, for instance, if the user entered 4 stars before. All right, now let's test this. So we'll hit send request again. And I've already copied and pasted this. Already copied this and pasted it now. Now, as for the latitude, will they just look? You can see I've already looked this up. You know, just Google for latitude and of the city you want to know that of, and just copy the latitude and longitude, and hotel rating. Let's just say 4 stars and see what happens. And there you go, we have a 200 okay. And now, and you can see this here, we get a bunch of data. And remember, the default value for the radius is 5 kilometers. And this is one city. So just to give you an idea of how much data there actually is. And we're already only looking for 4 stars in Madrid, right? So this is a lot of data you're getting. Let's copy and paste this into our editor just for a better look. And here you can see the name. So you see there are a ton of objects in that data array we have, and each of these objects represent a different hotel, and you get quite some information out of this. Now, the only thing we are interested right now in is the name, right? So the user mostly will only look for the name, but of course you can expand this to your needs and to your client's needs. And by the way, you can see here the filter did work, so we're only getting 4-star ratings. And I think this list is sorted, or this array is sorted by the distance, as you can see here. So this is 2.0 kilometers, this is 2.4, and it increases. So those at the bottom will be, yeah, the furthest away from that, from those coordinates. All right, but the only thing we are interested in, and we'll save into a variable, is the name, right? We just want the name. So let's save the responses. Now we know by now that to save a response, we need to enter the key response and then dot, and then head back to the JSON object we received. And this is called data. And since this is an array, and here you can now see what this actually means if you have an array, so like a list of objects. And this is the first object. So it starts here with the curly braces, goes down up to here. And this is all representing one hotel, right? Or one hotel information. And the next object starts after this comma, starting with this curly brace. And then you have the next one. So we want to provide the user with 5 hotels, right? So we would need the first 5 objects. So we will start with the first one and hit dot again, and we only want the name, right? So we just hit the name because it's data, and then within that array it's the name key here and here for each of them. All right, and let's save this into a new variable as well and call this hotel name 1. Create a variable, and we are going to repeat this 5 times. And you can just copy and paste this. Now obviously we don't want the first item again or the first object again, but we want the second one, right? So this is the first and this is the second. So now we want this. How do we target this? By just changing and increasing the ID. And we will create a new variable for this. Use hotel name 2, create another one, and so on and so forth. And this is repetitive, right? So we're just going to use this, copy and paste this. Number 2 is going to be hotel name 3. Again. And as you might already notice, this is wrong, is that this is a horrible way to do this, and it's not flexible. And you know, in programming you have this concept of DRY, DRY, yes. So it's do not repeat yourself. So if you see something like this, all your alarm bells and whistles should go off, because this is horrible programming actually. But for brevity's sake, we are going to, or for simplicity's sake, we're going to do it like this. But just remember, if you had, let's say your clients wants the first 20 hotels, and then you would have to maintain each and every one of those response captures one by one, right? So this is horribly to maintain, and also it's not scalable, because what if they wanted 100, or if they just need 2, then you would output 5 carousel cards and only 2 of them are filled. So this is not dynamic. And but their Voiceflow does not provide a built-in feature yet to, you know, loop through all these arrays and put them out dynamically. So we would have to go into functions, and I didn't want to do that for now. So for simplicity's sake, we are going to hard code this like this, just put out 5 hotels, but just remember in the back of your mind that this is not a beautiful way to do this. Okay, let's finish this up. Hotel name, just see, I think I mixed those up. Response date name, hotel name 4, and the last one will be the 5th one for create new one, hotel name 5. All All right, now let's test the whole flow. So we're going to take this block and put it in here below the token generation. Call this get until list. We're going to connect this one here, and in case it succeeds, what we're hoping for will be the output of the hotel names, right? So we're going to do it like this. I don't know if this works. Yeah, hotel name, number 3, number 4, and the last one, number 5. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, let's jump back to the start and hit test run. So what city and country are we going? Let's take something else. Let's just say Paris. So it did find Paris, that's a good thing. What type of accommodation? Let's go with 4 stars. It triggers the API from Amadeus, which is good. And there we have our names. Awesome. So this looks definitely like Paris, Notre Dame in Paris. Fantastic. So this seems to work, and we can go through all of the variables around here and just recheck if this is all working. The hotel rating, there we have our names and all of our keys. Fantastic. So that's working. All right, now we do have our hotel names, so that's a good thing. And remember, our output will be a carousel, right? A carousel card. So if we take a look again at what such a carousel is comprised of, then you will see that it does have an image, a card title, and a card description, right? And theoretically, we could also create the buttons dynamically, but we will not do this for now. This would be interesting, for instance, if you wanted to redirect the client or the user to the hotel's website, right? And then we could pull out the information as well and put it in a variable and put that variable as a button label. But we're going to leave this right now. Now we do have the title because this will be our hotel name. And what we still need would be a description and especially an image. And this took a while for me to figure out where we could get them. And we were going to use an API, the Google API for this as well. And if you check this hotel list Amadeus API doc again, then you will see that there is no image URL or anything like that, right? So we need to find a different solution. So if we go back to our Google API docs, then you will see this is the last thing we use, text search, and then we will have a places photo API. And this is, in theory, it's pretty straightforward. And you also just need this URL that you're gonna hit, and then need an API key. We already have that. Then some parameters, so like a max height and a max width. And the most important thing is to get the name of a photo. So what's the name of a photo? Where do you get this? And where we will get this is from another API of Google. And this is the same one we've already used, and that is the text search. And if you remember, we had this response, right, from the Google API where we were looking for the latitude and longitude. And what this also gives us is this part right here. So it says photos, and then we already have this parameter here, and this is the name of the photo. You also have the dimensions, and The only thing you need to be aware of is that these are also user photos, right? And you can basically pretty easy replicate this or take a look at this. If you check Google Maps itself, and then let's just say, I don't know, take some hotel, Hyatt, Regency, London, for instance. Then it will give you a selection. And if you check this here, then you see that there are 4,000 photos, more than that. And that there is a first photo, obviously. And if you click on that, then you'll see that it gives you a bunch of images. And these are now quite nice. So apparently these are from the hotel itself. But you could have bad luck and get one that's not as pretty as these ones. But in general, this is my experience, you get pretty nice images. And this is where we are going to pull our images from as well. And the other thing we are going to pull out of the same API endpoint from the text search is the description we still need, right? And this is also a little hidden, but you will find this if you take a look at this. This will give you a editorial summary of that. And this is also the parameter we are going to use to get the description. So we have the name and we have the description. So we have the name of the photo. The next step will be to pull the actual photo. This is another step. And we're going to use this place photo API for this. But we will get the editorial, so the summary or the description, what we're going to use inside that card from this text search. All right, now how do we do this? We are going to jump back into Voiceflow, and we already have our set destination component, right? And this is where we already use the Google API and the search text as well. So we're just going to copy this and head back into our home and main flow, paste it in here. We can delete this one. This was just for testing, just as was this. And we are going to make a couple of adjustments for this request, which will be, we will keep the key, the content type as well, of course. And now we're going to actually use a field mask. And the one I am looking for is the places photos. So you just paste it in here. And the second one is what I just mentioned, the editorial summary. So you would just put both of them in here, and then you get a filtered list actually of those results. Now the text query is also not going to be the user input location, obviously, but what we're looking for now, and this is why the text search is so powerful, because you can only look for a city and a country, but also for more specific locations, right? And you can see that in the docs, this is what they are providing and what they are telling us, right? With all these examples they mentioned here. So let's just see. So what we're looking for now, if you remember, is going to be the hotel name from the first hotel. And to make sure that there's definitely the hotel we're looking for, we're also going to add the address from before, right? Because that's the one we know that this is like the confirmed location of the user. So this should be fine already. And of course we would need to adjust all the responses. So let's clear them out. And what we will get back obviously would be the photo, the name of the photo. If you remember, again, this will be this URI, and we are going to take the first image and also the editorial summary for the description. So let's capture this. And we'll say response again, and places and photos. And then with the photo is, or the photos element is an array. So you see that from the square brackets. So we would want to catch the first one, and then we would want to have the name, right? And we're going to create a new variable for this, and this will be the photo URI. Save this. This is only the first step, remember. We're going to use another API on another endpoint, and the same goes for this one, and the editorial summary will be this one. Already taken it from here. We took this from here. Copy this. So it's places. Oh, that's the first one. It's places. Places twice. Editorial summary, and we're going to change. We're going to save this as hotel description. All right. All right. Now let's test this and see what we're getting. Hit send request. We got our API key and the hotel name. I have already taken this out of our last test request, and let's just choose the first one again. Enter this here and the formatted address, and we are going to just take Madrid in Spain again, just like we did last time, which obviously is important because this hotel is going to be in Madrid. And then hit generate. So let's see what happens, and we do get what we wanted. And here you have our status, and as you can see, first of all, the response is way shorter, right? If you imagine what it gave us last time, because we're not using the wildcard right now, right? We're not getting everything that's in that response, but only those two we were asking for using the field mask. And here we have the editorial summary, and we have the photos, and here we have our name, and this is the URI to a specific picture. Now there are 1 to 3 things I'd like to mention in addition to that. First of all, I see that the places is also an array, so I would need to adjust this because this will not catch what we want, first of all. So we also would need the first element. And the second thing is that the editorial summary itself is an object again, and we would want to have the text within, right? And you can see that this worked, by the way, as well. So we get our editorial summary: modern rooms in a stately hotel offering a trendy TV lounge, and so on. So this is the actual content we want, and that we would want to save into that variable. So I would need to adjust this. And the third thing is that don't get, if you have noticed, there's another URI and another photo URI especially. This is not what we want. This photo URI is from the author that contributed this specific picture to Google Maps, right, to the Google API. So don't get that mixed up. This has nothing to do with the actual image of that hotel. So what we want would be this one, and that's also what we're getting. So now let's just adjust this slightly with this one, and we want the text. This is not going to change anything right now, but we will see how this works in the testing that we're going to do right now. All right, now let's test this again by actually outputting the variables and see if this worked. So we're going to add another text, and the variables we just saved that to were hotel description, and the other thing was what was the other thing? Already forgot. Right, the photo URI. The photo URI. All right. So let's see. This is not going to work from here right now because it obviously needs the hotel name and the address. So let's just really quickly, so we can just start from here so that it doesn't get too long in testing. Let's add another set step right before this one. Just call it test. Select a variable, and this will be the hotel name 1. And we said this is called Petit. I don't know if we need to add these inverted commas, but I'm going to keep them in. Add another set, and this will be the address, right? Yes, the formatted address. Madrid, Spain. And yeah, this should work. So so now we're setting the variables. So let's start this here, and we can take a look at the variables on the left. So they were set, and we do get the photo URI. So that's a good thing. The other thing that's not working seems to be the description. So let's head back to the response. And yes, obviously, you know, that little mistake or what I forgot in the first place to target the first element of that array would also, of course, apply to the editorial summary, right? So if you go back here, then this would be, now we don't have an editorial summary right now, but if you remember, we had the editorial summary, and this was also per entry, right? Per each object of that, per each hotel object. So obviously we would also want to target only the first one that we're getting. So let's start this again. See what happens. And there it is. Awesome. Modern rooms in a stately hotel, offering a trendy TV lounge and everything, and we get the photo URI. By the way, we don't need to do it like this necessarily. You also get all the variables in here, but I'll just like to see all of the response details. All right, great. So this is working as well. All right, now the last step we need is to retrieve the actual photo URI from another Google API call. And we will jump back to the Google Docs for this. And we have used the text search, and now we're going to use the place photo. And there we have a request URL that we're going to take. And if you go through the parameters we need for this, then you will realize that we now actually have all the data we need. So let's create another API call. And we are going to copy the URL inside of here. And the name is going to be the photo URI we just got from the last call, right? And you know, now that I am thinking about this, photo URI is technically not correct because we are going to get the photo URI from this call that we're doing right now and not from the last one. From the last one, we got the photo name. Google calls it the photo name. And we should change this for clarity's sake. So let's jump into our variable overview and look for the URI. Go to here, rename it to photo name. And this should already have taken effect. All right, great. And if we switch back, it's already changed. All right, now that's a lot cleaner. Now, the API key, we already have this, obviously. And that's our Gmaps API key. And now the parameters. And the parameters are either, and they are required, are either max height in pixels or max width. So let's take any of them, max height, and set it to, I don't know, 300 maybe. This should be enough. And this is everything we would need. And we will see where we would want to catch this. And there was a short example of a response. Yes, this is this one. So this is the response. So fairly simple. So you just get two types of information, the name again and the photo URI, the actual photo URI. And this is exactly what I was talking about. So this is the URI we are going to need, and we are going to capture this. So response, and then it's just the photo URI. I think this is the way it was spelled. Yes. And we're going to create a new variable, and now we can call it photo URI. Okay, great. All right, now let's test this as well. And we're going to hit the send request button, and we need a photo name, obviously. So let's just hit this one again so that we get it, because I think I didn't save it somewhere as of right now. And here we have it. Here's the photo name. So just put it in somewhere. This looks correct. And cancel this. Head over here, send the request again, and paste it here. Let's see what happens. So you do get it to 100, which is good, but there is no info, because remember we wanted to get the photo URI, right? And I believe I do have an idea where this might come from. And let's just head back to the, yeah, exactly this one. This is what I was thinking about. The skip HTTP redirect, because what we are returning now from that response, from that request we just made, is the actual image. And this is not what we want. We want the URI, right? So we can put it into our card, our carousel card in Voiceflow, right? So what we want is just to add another parameter, which is optional, but we're going to need it. And this is going to be the skip HTTP redirect, and we're going to set it to true. And this is what it says here. If true, skip the redirect and return a JSON response containing the image details, right? And this is what we want. So we get this response and can save it to that variable. Okay. Yeah, this should work. Okay, let's try it out. And now this is exactly what we wanted. So we get it to 100, which is fine. And we have the name again and the photo URI. And this was a pretty long journey just to get this URI, but it's going to be worth it, hopefully. And great, this works as well. All right, now let's clean this up a little and then go for the last step, which would be to output the actual carousel. So remember, this was the get hotel list, right? And then this was to get the hotel image, the image name and description. And this was to get the photo URI. All right. And we could throw this out, this test variables, but let's just keep them in for now and head over to the next part. And the next part is going to be this carousel. And then we can even try this out already. So this is the first card. And now as for the image, this is not what we're going to use. We're not going to upload a hard-coded image, if you will, but to keep it dynamic and have this link entered. So enter file URL, and this is our photo URI. The next thing will be our card title. This was the hotel name. Let's take the first name and the description. Hotel description. Awesome. And we could basically already try this out. Okay, so let's test this and try it out right away. We just would need to connect all those API steps. Hopefully they're all going to be successful, and then just output this card. Yeah, this should work. Okay, let's see what happens. Hit play. Successful. And there it is. So we have an image, we have the title, and we have exactly the description we pulled earlier from the Google API. This is fantastic. So we're basically done. Of course, we would need to clean this up. And as I've told you, repeat this 5 times and do a little bit of cleanup with all the variables, the variable names, to keep it nice and organized. And but this is the final result. Obviously, we only have one card right now. We would want to have a carousel, and we are going to clean this up a little. All right, so now let's close this. And just as an FYI, I am going to go through all of these and just show you this to not bore you with all the repetitive tasks. And what we are going to do is, because I noticed that obviously we would need to do this 5 times as well, right? Because we are saving this into a variable called photo name and photo description and hotel description, but we would need to name each of these for the first hotel, right? So photo name 1, hotel description 1, photo name 2, hotel description 2, and so on. And just as we did with the hotel names. And this is what I'm going to do in the background. I'm not going to bore you with this and record this. And the same with the URI, right? Because this would be obviously for each individual hotel. So I'm going to do that, going to show you this afterwards. And I'm also going to create, now the cards, we're going to do the cards together. I think this is fairly bearable to watch me do this, if it's still a repetitive task, but still. All right, guys, now what I have done now in the meantime is to create another component out of these get photo calls. And if we take a look at this, let's just go into that component and see what's happening. Then you see it's just a repetitive tasks of exactly those 2 calls we made before, right? And it's up to 5 hotels, just as we said. And I have created a bunch of new variables and just adjusted the call to the actual request parameter we would need for that specific hotel. So for instance, the first one would be text query, the hotel name 1, formatted address stays the same, obviously, because it's always the same location. And we're going to capture that response and save the photo name in photo name 1, the hotel description into hotel description 1, and so on. If you jump to the second part, we have the exact same thing. The only difference is we have hotel name 2, formatted address stays the same, and photo name, we're going to save it to photo name. Watch out, so it's still, obviously, because it's a separate call, it will still always be the first element, right? So you don't jump further within that array to the next object. So it will always be the same position, but we're going to save it into different variables because it's obviously referring to another hotel. And this is this part, the left column, if you will, and the right column is where we are pulling the photo URI, right? So you would just need to adjust the URL that you always change the photo name, right? This long URL part, if you will, from photo name 1. Here you have photo name 2 and so on. And you would want to save that into another variable that's also called photo URI 1, photo URI 2, and so on and so forth. And that's it for the cleaning up part. All right, now the last part is to output the carousel, right? The carousel card. So we will jump back to the main flow, and I have already renamed this block into print carousel. There's still the one we started out with, and you would want to change this obviously to photo URI 1. So this is the variable name we have right now, as the link where it pulls the image from, right? Again, then the title will be hotel name 1 and the title description, or the hotel description from hotel 1. And this will just be repeated. By the way, we can add some buttons. So let's, I don't know, take go to website, maybe something like this. Just that we have a button that it looks a little nicer, just as a placeholder, and then we will add another card. Go to link, enter the file URL, and this is going to be photo URI 2. Card title will be hotel name 2, description hotel description 2. And this will also get a button named go to website. By the way, I think I can duplicate these. So yeah, just right click on this and just have this adjusted. This is the title, right? Yeah, the title, name 3. I don't know why it sometimes jumps back into this normal format, if you will. Confuses me because I always think it's not being recognized. The variable is not going to be recognized. Hotel name 3, all right. And number 4, photo URI 4, card title, hotel name 4, description, hotel description 4, and I just created a new card, didn't duplicate it. Just realized this. Go to website and duplicate this. Photo URI 5, hotel name 5, and hotel description number 5. All right, great. Now we have our carousel. And as for the most exciting part right now, we're going to test this. Okay, so I just went through the whole flow again and realized that there is actually a major part that we missed and that I forgot. So this is the embedding of the Google Maps, right? So that the user can actually see the destination and be sure that this is what he is looking for and that he can confirm this. But this is quite easy, and we're going to go back to the set destination component. So this would be here, And this is exactly the reason why we got the places ID in the first place. So remember, we tested this and this worked. I think we chose Madrid for this. And what we need for this is going to be the Google Embed API, the Maps Embed API. And I think Daniel from Voiceflow, he has a very thorough and excellent tutorial on this, how you would use this. So we're just going to try to replicate this and hope to do it justice. And if you take a look at this doc, then you see that it's basically just an iframe, and you can do some adjustments, and we're going to test this, how this looks. And we are just going to copy and paste the whole code and paste this into a regular text field. So we are here. Yes, this is where we get our info from the first call. So let's get a regular text, pull that in, and then just paste all of that into the text field. So just get out of this. And if you're seeing nothing like this, that's a good sign, because this is how it's supposed to work. In the preview, we're not able to see a preview of the map, but this is going to work later on. So what we obviously would need to adjust would be the source, right? So the URL. And how this is constructed is visible here. You can see the source, then you have the base URL again, and then a key, which is the API key, and then you have a query parameter. And what we need for this is the place ID, the places ID. And this would be the most accurate run. And we will say, now where are we in this flow? What city and country are you going? It's going to enter this. It's going to pull, and then, okay, so let's ask, after we have retrieved all the info, something like, is this what or where you're heading? Generate a couple of variants. Are you going? Oh, that's weird. Is this your destination? Are you headed here? Yeah, all right, okay. Now, then we can delete this. This was just for testing. And this will be the display map part. And continue here. Then we will show the map. And before, we will need to set the request URL, right? And we're going to construct it dynamically as well. So let's see how we can do this. So we are going to set a variable, and we're going to do that after the question. And let's say set embed URL. Select a variable. This is gmaps embed URL. I think I've created this already. Yeah. All right, we're going to take it then. The embed URL. And how this is constructed is that we will take this part, including the equal sign, put it in single quotes, then concatenate it. So we would kind of stitch it together with, first of all, the key, the API key, the Gmaps API key. Then we would add another string or part of a string, and this is the query initialization, if you will. and we concatenate that again with the places ID. Yes, exactly this one. And I believe you must, yeah, if we are using a query like this is not necessary, but I believe we need to add another place ID and then colon. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like this. All right. So this will be saved. And now we can use this variable and just put it into the whole source part. And this is the gmaps embed URL. It's gone. Yeah. Okay. Now let's see if this works. All right, I just noticed that there is one more step that we need to take, because with this setup it's not going to work, and this is to enable the Maps Embed API in our Google Cloud Console. So we're going to go to this URL, console.cloud.google.com, and from there on you can choose within the navigation menu, choose the Google Cloud's platform like this, and then go to APIs and services. And where you will end up is this site, and there you have all the products and services that you can disable or enable. And what we are working with is the Maps Embed API. So if you see this disabled button, then you're fine. If you see an enabled button, then please click that, and after that we are fine and good to go. Okay, but now we can test this. So let's see. We head back to Voiceflow. This is our map, and we will start here. So where are we going? Let's choose Tokyo, for instance, something else. And there we go. We have our map. It's cut off right now because we haven't played around with the max and the width and height parameters yet. But it does work, and it shows the correct location. Okay, we will jump out of this, and the last step we need to take is to listen by adding 2 buttons. And the first of them is going to be yes, and second is going to be no. And let's say no. Let's try again, and this was yes, that's correct. And if this is yes, that's correct, it's just going to continue where it jumped into that component. And if it's not correct, we are just going to jump back, for simplicity's sake, to the first question, so that the user will be able to specify its request. All right. So this is the set destination part. Then we will go back to our main flow, and now we should be done and can test the whole flow. So let's test the whole flow, and we're going to start right from the beginning. So where are we going? So let's choose something we haven't done yet. I don't know, maybe Sydney, for instance. Successful API. This is Sydney, Australia. Yeah, all right, Okay, that's correct. Accommodation preferences. Let's get fancy. Choose 5 stars. It creates the token. Great. Goes through all of these calls. And this very much looks like Sydney. Awesome. Fantastic. So the whole flow works beautifully. So we have the interactive map. We have the choice for the rating. We are refreshing the Amadeus token, and it gives us, according to our preferences, the exact results and displays them beautifully in a carousel format. Fantastic. All right, guys, congratulations. You made it this far. This was quite extensive, and let me know what you think. Was this kind of too technical? Was this too easy for you, maybe even? But I believe that it's interesting how you can get pretty cool results if you get a little creative, right? And let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you next time.